to Living in the Past, where three middle-aged dudes relive their past by enjoying the pop culture of their youth. Are you guys ready to get left behind by your parents, have total freedom to do what you want, have a home invasion, set booby traps that would kill most people, and discover what is the most important thing during Christmas? Devin?
Jeremy, I'm a Gen Xer. I was home alone for the vast majority of my childhood. So, yes, I was born ready for this.
So true. Carl?
I am ready. I'm ready. Do y'all need a fact this week for my internship?
Yes. We always need facts from our intern. What you got?
Did you know that Home Alone was originally supposed to be a Warner Brother movie?
Oh. No, I didn't.
Say more.
Well, Hughes, he pitched. I will. There's more facts. The more you know. Hughes, he pitched the film to Warner Brothers, and they said, well, how much do you think you can make that for? He said, about $10 million. They said, okay, we'll do it for that. So they started doing all the pre-production and getting the actors and set locations and all this stuff, and little by little the budget rose to about $14.7 million. And
how dare he?
Yes, Warner Brothers said, this is not what you said. So they said, we'll go up to $13.5 million. And so they said, well, we're going to push back a little bit. They had a nicely written memo about why they needed to have the money and how quality went out. And so after that, Warner Brothers promptly shut down production.
Ooh, I didn't even know that.
Well, little did they realize that even though it's technically illegal, Hughes had let people at 20th Century Fox see the script and stuff too, which they're not supposed to do until somebody kind of lets you go. And so they were going around. So the Warner Brothers rep was going around. The offices were all in a high school. They were actually using a abandoned high school around Chicago area as their where their offices were. They built sets there, different sort of things. So Warner Brothers was going around to each office saying, okay, shut down, go ahead, wrap it up, go home, the movie's over. And as soon as that, he would leave one office and go to the next, another producer, Scott Rosenfeld, would come in and say, no, just keep going, we're fine. And so every time he'd go in the office, Rosenfeld would follow after he left and tell, oh, no, we're still going, don't worry about it. So when the Warner Brothers rep got to the very end, he kind of turned around and saw Rosenfeld kind of coming out of the office he had just left, where Rosenfeld said, you're fired. And the guy out, and the next day they had 20th Century Fox shirts and and chairs, and they were just kept going. So $1.2 million kept it from being a Warner Brothers movie. And I think Box Office Mojo said that in the end it was maybe an $18 million budget, but it actually made a whole lot more than that. So it was kind of a little goof on Warner Brothers there.
Wow, that's crazy. So what happens, I wonder, Carl, as an intern and in your research, did you find out, was that Warner Brothers executive fired?
No, I don't. I don't even know the person's name. It was, but the person who was being told, 20th Century Fox, and I heard those guys' names, but I don't remember that. But they were like, as soon as Warner Brothers says you're done, call us. And so that's why he could immediately just, instead of having people go home thinking they're fired and then have to call everybody back, it was just stay. So
it's amazing. I'm going to try. That's kind of like a George Costanza at some point. If I ever get released from work, I'm just going to keep coming in and see what happens. Keep assigning homework.
That's just amazing. Yeah, I think even Kramer did that one time. Just felt like he was, I'm just working.
Yep.
There's that line. You don't even work here. I don't even work here. So,
well, as Devin has proven, going to the Styx concert, if you just pretend like you belong there,
hey,
it's got to work out.
Just act like you're supposed to be there, baby.
That's me every day. I think they're figuring me out here at the place I work, though. Oh, man. When did you guys first see Home Alone? Like, I saw it in the theater. I was a junior in high school. I think I was on a date. I can't even remember. But I saw it in the theater, and it was a packed house, Thanksgiving break. It was riotous laughter. It was actually, I recall as I was leaving the theater thinking what a fun, enjoyable film going experience that was. Devin, when was the first time you saw it?
Well, this is going to ring true for our Gen X listeners. If you are Millennial or Gen Z listening to this, first, welcome. We welcome all kinds here. I saw this in what was known as a drive-in theater.
Whoa.
A drive-in theater. Yeah. I can recall who I was with. And because of that, I actually watched the movie, not doing what I wanted to do at that point in my life.
Drive-in.
But it was drive-ins. But it was at a local drive-in theater.
Awesome. Carl, when did you see it?
All right, we've gotten to the point in my life in the 90s where I was actually had some agency. I actually drove and went to the theater. So we've gotten to the area where I went to the theater. And it was I was a sophomore in college, so that was the time in my life I was probably trying to go to the movies every Friday, just, if there was something out there.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
this one was out, and I don't know if I saw it opening weekend or anything, but I saw it relatively early on, and the same experience as you, Jeremy. Just everybody, myself included, laughing hysterically at the movie and really thinking that was a good movie. It was maybe more than you expected it to be.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising. We'll get into that in a minute, but like you were talking about Warner Brothers and then 20th Century Fox taking the helm. Like they were predicting, like they thought they had a hit on their hands, but they were thinking like 70 to 80 million on an 18 to 15 to 18 million dollar budget, and the film domestically grossed like 285 million, and that is just an insane markup. It was this huge hit, and I believe it was like in the top 3 grossing films of that year in North America. 2 Academy Award nominations. John Williams again hitting home runs with original score, and then the original song "Somewhere in My Memory," which is you hear that in the film, but then in the credits as well. Williams actually he jumped in when the original composer backed out. The Hughes and Chris Columbus, the director, Hughes wrote it, Columbus directed it. They didn't think they could get Williams, and he saw an early cut of the movie, and his words, he said, "I was enchanted by it, and I just wanted to write music for it." My gosh, you have this kind of lightning in a bottle experience because, of course, we just recently got a new iteration of Home Alone. I won't watch it. My son Sam watched it because he loves that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, what'd you think? He goes, it was not good, Dad. It wasn't good. And so I was like, okay. But it was very much a lightning in a bottle experience that spawned multiple sequels. Why? Like, I look at it, I'm like, okay, we got Williams, we got a good writer, like, what is it that made it catch fire like it did? Carl, what do you think it is that makes Home Alone so successful?
It's basically all the things you've said already. It's who they didn't expect to get John Williams. They probably really couldn't afford John Williams. John Williams, and I know it's not on his list of top 10 scores of all time. Like he's got 6 out of those, and so Devin calls him a failure. So maybe if he had gotten the 7th one with this one, but it's not got all those memorable themes necessarily, but it's very, very good, especially for the type of film it is. So they're getting, and they did this on the cheap a lot. I mean, the chief cinematographer was somebody he had worked with before, but on the second unit. He'd never been in charge of cinematography on a movie. And he worked with set directors who had worked with him on it's like Heartbreak Hotel, which was a movie that bombed for Chris Columbus. So it was a lot of people who were not at as far as what their reputation was at the top of their game. But I think in some of the things I saw and heard them talking, they loved this movie, though. I think it's just the fact that Chris Columbus loved Christmas. So that's what, you think of another one like that, more modern, is Elf. It's like their goal was to make like one of those claymation shows that we saw in the past, a classic Christmas holiday special instead of kind of the time. Like Christmas Vacation is something that is of the time. It's funny, but it's not necessarily one that's, like you say, a heartwarming classic. When they actually people who love what they're doing are given a chance, then I think that's all that coming together. The people who they really had a a joy and a love of making this movie, and I think that shows in the final product, and I think that's why it was so successful.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Devin, what do you like? Why is this a lightning in the bottle film and like just crushed it at the box office?
Yeah, I mean, so I think all of the comments that we've had thus far are spot on. I think the only thing that I could really add, one, I don't think this film, even if you take all this ensemble cast and the director and John Williams, I don't know that it does as good as of grabbing that lightning in the bottle if it's released on Memorial Day weekend and it's parents leave for summer vacation. I think there's something about leaving it as winter vacation, this time of the year where it's much more kind of like families are getting together to actually watch movies as well.
Right.
And so I think the release date and the period within the time period within the movie's calendar, it being around the holidays, are what just add to everything that's been talked about so far.
Yeah, and of course you can't not talk about Home Alone without mentioning Macaulay Culkin. Hughes was making Uncle Buck, and there's a scene in Uncle Buck where Macaulay Culkin's character interviews John Candy, or I think it's John Candy, through this mail slot, and Hughes is doing the scene. They're doing the scene, and Hughes, that's where he got the seed for Home Alone. He's like, this kid's great, and he had written it with the intention of Macaulay Culkin being in the film, but they ended up auditioning tons of kids. But when all said and done, it was like, no, this is Macaulay Culkin's film. And I don't know, I watched it last night with my wife and my son, and had a great time. I've seen it so many times, but one of the things I paid particular attention to Macaulay Culkin's performance. And I guess he's 8 or 9 when he filmed this, and it is unbelievable the things he does as a little actor that I was kind of stunned by, to be honest. Just little facial things, little things he does. The thirsty for more line was ad-libbed. I mean, he just did so many things in the film that just really make it special. Why, though? I mean, I guess it's these little these abilities to feel natural, but I still don't know how to define what makes him so special as a child actor. Devin, what would you how would you speak into that? And first, do you even agree? Is he what really makes this movie work?
No. It's clearly my own shortcomings, Jeremy. It's my own internal battle that I'm just not a Macaulay Culkin fan.
Whoa! Shots fired. Shots fired.
All right, that might be a bit of an overstatement for the sake of ratings, but so I think that yes, I enjoy him in this movie. I would not go oh, Macaulay Culkin's in this movie, I have to go see the movie. I'm just not there as far as a fan of him. But that's not to say that the films that I've seen with him in it have been enjoyable for the vast majority of ones that I've seen. So for me, it's I appreciate it. I think he was perfect with his role, but for me, it's not oh, should I go see the Harrison Ford film or the new Macaulay Culkin film? So those are kind of my
What are you talking about? Macaulay Culkin action.
Although that would have been cool if he were the president in Air Force One. That would have been and he set up the traps on Air Force One Home Alone. That would have been pretty amazing. Gary Oldman just falling onto that would have been the plastic forks and stuff on there. Anyway, yeah.
He paints a hole in the floor and he falls through the hole.
Somebody get Warner Brothers on the phone now. Go.
Carl, where are you at with Macaulay Culkin? Are you a fan, not a fan? Do you find his performance impressive, not impressive? I mean, a lot of people, I guess, would look at Stern and Pesci as the criminals and Wet Bandits as sort of what make this movie work. A lot of people mention that, but I keep going back, especially after I watched it last night. It's Macaulay Culkin makes this film magic, I think.
Yeah, I liked him in it. I think it's one of those things that you go back to Uncle Buck, I think that and he wasn't a big role in Uncle Buck, but his interview of John Candy when he's like, hey, you know, you have a whole lot of, you have many hairs in your nose for, you know, something like that. It's like you ask a lot of questions. I'm a kid. That's my job. Yeah. And it's you know, you're looking at it. If you compare him to the other adult actors in the movie, I think that's maybe why it's so hard to put your pin it down, because like, well, he's doing the same thing they're doing. But if you look at the other child actors or other child actors in other venues, you see sometimes, you know, and he's not perfect. I mean, there's times in some of the slapstick stuff where you know, you could kind of see the, you know, I guess your disbelief kind of disappears a second or two at times, but he just, he's delivering it more like an adult would, like you said, facial expressions, how it seems like he's in the conversation instead of reciting lines, when a lot of times the children seem just to be reciting lines. And so he is acting, and I think that's part of it. And it's what you expect in a movie to a degree from other actors, so it kind of sneaks through if you're not remembering how young he is. So I think he is, and and I'll talk about my favorite. There can be only one later. I'll talk more about his acting in that part too. But there's parts where he really does do a great job too.
Yeah, I totally agree. The cast is great. I mean, yes, Macaulay Culkin is this topic to consider and talk about, but you got Pesci, who literally a few months earlier, I think in September, Goodfellas came out, and he wins the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for that film. And then, you know, November, he's at this. Daniel Stern, who actually was going to be kicked off the film. Things happened. He came back on, and thank God for that. John Hurd's the dad. You see John Hurd in so many things. I looked through his IMDb, and it is ridiculous how many credits he has. You know, but everything, even the neighbor,
Old Man Marley.
Marley, right? Yeah, it's like he was at the time like a well-respected theater actor. You know, of course, Catherine O'Hara. I mean, just such a great cast that really props up the film when they need it. Everyone kind of makes their mark. That's very John Hughes, isn't it? Like, everybody's sort of memorable, all these bit characters, and of course John Candy's in it. And I forgot how funny his little like kind of rant is in the truck as they're going. And he literally did all of his filming in one day. I think it was like a 20-something hour shoot, and he knocked out his part. Pretty amazing. I think he owed, from what I read, or it was kind of like John Hughes called in a favor.
Yeah, it was a favor.
Candy did it. So.
He said, I'll give you a day. So he said, he took it literally like, okay, a day's a 24-hour period, so we're going to work the whole 24-hour period, basically.
That's great. I love the cast. I don't we'll probably talk about the cast a little bit later, but I really think the cast also does what they need to do. It's almost like they come in and play their role. Like if you want to use a sports analogy, like they come off the bench and do what they need to do during the time they're on the floor, and I think it's great. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into kind of the guts of the film and talk a little bit more about it. So we'll be right back. All right, so here is what Wikipedia says as the synopsis for Home Alone. Macaulay Culkin plays Kevin McAllister, a boy who defends his Chicago home from burglars after his family accidentally leaves him behind on their vacation to Paris. Devin, what would you add to the synopsis? If someone had never seen it, you give them that. Do you add anything else? If so, what is it?
Well, someone that would read that or hear that, Jeremy, with no context of this movie, that he just defends his Chicago home. I have a different visual image in my mind what that would look like. So I think maybe adding something about how he creatively defends his Chicago home with hijinks and tomfoolery, or he outsmarts burglars versus just plain old defending his Chicago home.
Oh, my God. Well, you know, and it's like when you read after his family accidentally leaves him, that's, I would say, 99.9% of parents' biggest fear is like losing their kid, right? Like kid getting lost. And I even read about the marketing, how they were really careful to like, no, this is fun.
Funny.
It's
child
fun and funny,
abandonment.
and it's a comedy. Carl, what would you add to the synopsis to someone who had never seen it?
Well, there's not really not much to add, but I did get a little nervous watching the movie as far as the plot and the synopsis might go, because I felt like maybe there was a glitch in the Matrix here. I was looking around to be sure that the agents hadn't walled off the windows in my house. I was searching for a wet wall because it felt like deja vu. Well, because wasn't it last time we were talking about a movie? I think there was someone trying to get home to family. There was some kind of tirade at a counter at the airport. Yes. I think the final leg of the journey was with John Candy in the back of a truck somehow. So I was like, did we just see this movie? But
yes.
But it's still, it's like, well, it might be something that derivative of, I guess, of things he's done before, but didn't pay attention to it or notice it at the time. It's still a really good movie, though.
Yeah, it's it is that kind of like horror like scenario, right? You lose your kid, and you left them and you're far away, and it's almost like they do it great in terms of like adding comedic tension, but there's like a real tension to you're far away from your child. Your child is alone. You're trying to get back to him, but guess what? You have to be at an airport. And I don't know about you guys. Airports on the anxiety scale, like they're like out of a scale of 1 to 10, they're 11 for me. Like they are like the anxiety. Too bad, pot gummies aren't legal everywhere, because I would be popping those like crazy.
You just got to fly to the right states, clearly.
Yeah, it's just Colorado to California, baby. And I'll be a happy camper. It is sort of like this horror scenario, but I think that like Home Alone is so in their marketing, they did a great job of just saying, no, it's funny. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. It's fun. It's in the suburbs. It's funny.
Well, that's one thing they were talking about, the writers of it. Is like, how do you make it believable that this family would leave their child behind and not be monsters? And so I think they did a good job with that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's look at. We got to talk about the booby traps. That's been one of the most enjoyable things, and I think for kids, that's their big in. To the movie. And then, of course, when they get a little bit older, a little bit more mature, they start to hear and see the message of the film. But, I watched it last night. I'm 47 years old. My God, I was laughing my ass off as I watched paint cans hit people in the face that would normally kill them. I loved it. So let's go into our segment, 3 Big Questions. And our first one is going to be about... those booby traps.
3 big questions. Three, 2, 1.
All right, so let me give you guys a list, and then I'll get to my my question for you. And here's a list of some, not all. So if you want to add anything, you can. But here are the kind of the main booby traps that Kevin sets for the wet bandits. One is the ice-covered stairway and the entrance to the basement. There's also ice-covered stairway leading into the front door as well. There's the flat iron falling from a laundry chute after Daniel Stern's character pulls the light switch. Tar-covered basement stairs with a nail on it. You got micro machines on the floor. Christmas ornaments. They shatter, of course, when stepped on. Barefoot. Paint can to the face. Just mentioned that a second ago. Doorknob heated up. Very Raiders of the Lost Ark moment there. Blowtorch to the head. Glue on Reynolds wrap and feathers to the face. That blowtorch glue on the Reynolds wrap, they're really close together. You could almost combine them, but those are the booby traps that I had actually listed for our patrons. They voted on what they think is the best booby trap, but my big question to you guys is, what do you think is the best one that Kevin set up and then pulled off? Devin, what do you think?
All good options. I don't think that I laughed any less at any of them, but I will say this, dear listener. I think the one that I can identify most with as a parent is stepping on the Christmas ornaments. Although it's typically Legos in our household, but there's just something about, like, I identify with the sheer pain that a small piece of plastic can cause to a grown-ass man.
It takes you down quick, man. You're
and
out.
You start cussing like Joe Pesci does too. So,
well, it's funny. Like he was ad-libbing in the movie, and he was cussing up a storm, and Chris Columbus is like, "Hey, this is a kids' movie. You can't call him a motherfucker. Like, you can't do that." And so he was channeling his character Vincent from Goodfellas. Oh my gosh, Carl, what's your favorite?
I will mention, it's not my favorite, but the flat iron falling through the laundry chute. One thing about that was the cinematographer I mentioned earlier. He had never been in charge. He was second unit kind of guy, and so he said because he was scared. He was not confident necessarily in his ability, so he had set up a small camera that was probably as small as you can get and still be film quality, and he'd always hide it somewhere to have a different angle, so they would have two kind of shots of the same thing in case he missed it or didn't do a good job. And the more they used it, the more they realized in the dailies that was getting the better shot sometimes. And so then they started using it purposely for things. And so he said for like they tied it to a string and dropped it down the laundry chute too to kind of get that falling feeling of the iron. So that was a good one. But the one I like the most, even though I don't get to experience much in Alabama, was ice covered stairway for the entrances, basement and front door. It's just something helpless, like when because sometimes ice, you're like, yeah, I can manage this, and then you just hit that one spot and it's over, and you can't recover. So it was very, and played off very well like a Warner Brothers cartoon also. So it was very funny as well.
Yeah. It's slapstick at its finest, and I teach film to students in high school, and my students were getting really confused over, well, what's the difference between screwball and slapstick? And slapstick is just that physical comedy you see. That's what Home Alone is. Screwball kind of has slapstick elements, but also has like witty dialogue, witty banter back and forth. But a lot of times those two get confused. But this is slapstick and it's beauty. Last night, my son Sam, who has seen the movie a million times, but for some reason, like, the things connect when you watch it multiple times. He could not stop laughing at one of it's kind of a booby trap, not really, but kind of. But he could not stop laughing when Macaulay Culkin went through the doggy door with the BB gun and shot Pesci in the balls. And Sam just thought, like, connected to him. I mean, he was missing the movie because he was laughing so hard. I love glue on the Reynolds wrap, feathers to the face. I just thought that one was funny. That's probably my favorite. Our patrons voted, and they voted for blowtorch to the head.
Wow.
They're a violent lot.
Yes.
That was their pick. And I get it. I mean, that one's pretty gnarly. My son Sam last night was like, "That would kill you, wouldn't it, if it was real?" I'm like, "Yeah, that would kill you."
Especially
and
just
you wouldn't
sitting
just
under
stand there and
yeah.
He's just letting it go, man. Letting it
Oh
go.
my gosh.
Yeah, that's my big question. Carl, what do you have for us this week?
All right. So again, we're trying to believe that these parents are not monsters for leaving their child and going off to Paris. So have you guys ever lost or left your child behind?
Oh.
And while you think about it, I'll start. My mom tells me the story of I got in or maybe that was, I don't know. Anyway, they kind of lost me in a store one time. I think they freaked out, but found me. Yeah. But personally, I think Emma is our oldest daughter, and she was about 6 months old, and we finally were going to go out and leave her with a sitter for the first time. And it wasn't someone coming to our house; it was somebody we went to church with. So we took her to their house. We went to a concert, and then we're getting back on the interstate, and my wife looks at me and goes, "Why are you getting on going this way? We live the other direction." And I said, "Have you forgotten our daughter? We have to pick up." Oh, so it was just one of those things. You get in the habit of going somewhere, and you go one way to go home. And she was not even thinking about going and getting her. Which I would think her as a mom be like, I got to get back to my baby. I got to get back to my daughter, and always know where she was. But she was ready just to go on home and not pick her up. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've gotten lost, like me as a kid.
Right.
I've gotten lost, and you guys will appreciate this. I was in my dad was military, so lived on Air Force bases, and they have the base exchange, which is basically just like a Target or a Walmart just on the base. And I was in the base exchange, and I was looking through all the Star Wars toys. I was probably 5, 6, and a kid said, "Hey, there are some kids that are hiding Darth Vader over on the other side of the store behind like some of the sporting goods stuff. You have to look behind it." So I said, "Hell yeah!" And I went looking with this kid who I didn't even know this kid. He was like a year older than me, and I'm like, I totally trusted him. We went looking. We found I think like a C-3PO, which was very deflating to find that when you're looking for Vader.
Amen.
But like my parents had no idea where I was. They freak out. I'm lost. They're looking for me, and then the dreaded loudspeaker, Jeremy Scott, come to the front. Your mom and dad are waiting for you.
Nice.
Tears, spear. That was rough. But I, as a Gen Xer and as a parent who does not want to be a helicopter parent, I do make that mistake of being one sometimes, and I've never lost my kids. They've never been forgotten. And I don't think my wife has lost them either. So we're doing okay. I will say that as they're getting older, they like to not show up when they're supposed to be picked up. That happens, and that pisses the old man off. But other than that, that's all I got. What about you, Devin? You got guilty face on.
I'll just lead with, clearly you guys are better Fathers of the Year candidates than this guy. I was just typing something into Google to make sure the statute of limitations has expired on this. So first off, I totally identify with actually getting lost. I once, when I was, I don't know how old, I was probably around that 5 or 6 year old range, and when Sears and Roebuck used to be a thing, I climbed to, how they have like the racks of garments that are like a big circle. Right? So I climbed to the very middle of those underneath, unbeknownst to my mother and my aunt, and they lost their damn minds looking for me. And I was just like, I'm just hanging out, man. I was bored following the ladies shopping, so I was just bored. But yes, with kid number one, there was one day he and I were actually, this isn't so much leaving him, but we were riding bikes at, we live near a local high school, and so there was like one of those big portable classrooms, and so we were kind of like playing back and forth, and then he like went one way, and I thought, I'll go around the other way. So I went around the other way, and when I got to the other side, he wasn't there. And he had it turned into a 30-minute scrambling. This is pre-cell phones. And I am losing my damn mind. And so I'm like riding as fast as I can all over the campus. There's other, parents and families like, "Hey, have you seen this little kid?" And like, "Nope, haven't seen it." And I'm losing my mind. And so it was literally about 30 minutes later where I finally found, and he was on the path. He took some circuitous route. He was on the path to go home though. Totally fine.
Oh my goodness.
But then when he was in 8th grade and he was a little feisty. I'm trying to limit your post-production time, Jeremy. I don't want to drop F-bombs.
Thanks, man.
He got a little saucy in the morning before school, and I'm just like, hey, guess what? Either you're going to apologize and get in the car to be driven to school, or I'm going to drive off and leave you here. And this is out on the street, so the door's locked. He doesn't have a house key, and he's just like, he gave me the fake Joe Pesci cussing from Home Alone. And I was like, well, all right then, see ya. And I drove off and left him there.
I think you're in the clear. I just looked up the statute of limitations. I think
I'm good. Okay, good. Yeah, child abandonment.
Well, how does that story end? Like, did you reconnect?
Well,
I mean, obviously he's still alive.
I saw him at his wedding a couple of years ago. So I drove. I drove down the road and I just pulled over.
Yeah.
Waited about, 10 minutes or so. Then I circled back around to the house, and he was just there. Like, it wasn't even like, can I use this term, manly crying? That's probably outdated now, but Gen Xers will appreciate it. But it was like the ugly cry, which is like snot coming down and everything because he thought he was abandoned. And well, you have a lot more sympathy as I'm telling the story than I did at any point of actually living the story again. and so I rolled down the passenger window. And it's like, hey, need a ride? And he's just through the snot coming out, quivering lip. He just got in the car and just like, then I drove to school. But yeah,
there you go. There you go. Good job, Dad. Good job.
You don't mess around with old King Kong, and you don't mess around with Jim. All right? Yeah,
yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. So I think that's. Devin, I think you're next, right? What's your big question for Home Alone?
My big question is this, and I guess it kind of springboards from my little story is, can we have a film like this in our highly sensitive culture of parenting and things like that? Can we have a Home Alone in this day where parents fly off and leave their children behind? Can this be something that we could come back together on, or will this only serve to divide us more as a culture, Jared?
Well, they released this new one. I have no idea the storyline.
Yeah,
Sam, my son, seemed to indicate that it's very similar, and that might be why no one's watching it. I think it's not as raw enough or hardcore,
really defend that Chicago home. Yeah,
violent, bodies are hitting the floor, and so.
Give me, Kevin McAllister and The Purge. There's the mashup I want to see.
There you go. Love it. But I think you have to do that. I think you have to do some sort of crazy mashup that blends all these genres and it kind of has edginess to it, and then
yes,
make it an 8-episode limited series on Netflix, and then people might watch it. So I don't know, Carl, what do you think?
I think comedy's a lot tougher now than it was back then in earlier times.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, and I've heard people talk about it. Different comedians, some railing against it, some saying, it's just there's a different standard, and we have to work to what the standard is to still be funny. So I don't know if they can. I mean, and it may just be a separate sense of humor that millennials and different people younger than us develop. Or maybe things just aren't going to be as funny as they used to be. Or people will maybe sort of realize that, hey, this is just a joke, and we'll probably hopefully lighten up at some point too. But
right.
I think it would cause some kind of spark for some people.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but it would. Somebody would put a Twitter, and a bunch of people would resend it, and it would probably make a story on some website or something. So, yeah, I think it's tougher.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's doing the if you do, you make this movie today, I'm sure there's some sort of TikTok challenge, blowtorch to the head challenge, and then, of course, everybody's outraged, and then we have think pieces in the, opinion section of the New York Times. What's our culture coming to?
Kevin McAllister devouring Tide Pods. I love it, yes.
Macaulay Culkin just recently, I just made me think of this. He, just thinking of how much time has passed. This came out in 1990. About 3 years ago, Macaulay Culkin tweeted, do you want to feel old? I'm 40. You're welcome. And it is the 10th most liked tweet in Twitter history.
Whoa.
So it just resonated with people, I guess. But, so some time's passed. And we're looking, 30-ish years now. And I don't know. I think Home Alone is sort of stuck in its time, and yes, we have violent movies today, but they're they have to reach for something greater, and have some sort of societal like commentary. And Home Alone has a great message, but it's dealing more with our I don't know. We'll get into it later, but like our heart and how we view our relationships on a very individualistic, personal level, not this bigger societal commentary. And I feel like everything needs to do something like that now, which kind of bums me out. I miss stories like Home Alone that just pop up. So, all right, let's go to Switch It Up, where we keep asking some questions, and we'll come right back after this break, and we'll get into Switch It Up.
It is time to switch it up.
Let's switch it up. Let's have a good time. Can't wait to show you something that will blow your mind.
All right, this week Switch It Up. It's Carl who came up with this this moment for us to switch it up. So Carl, take it away. What are we doing for this week's Switch It Up?
All right, the Switch It Up is we're going to be switching in ways that maybe we're going to really create a mashup. So what if we, and Devin, he kind of even alluded to a little bit of if he want to do a different scene from a different movie and mash it in there, like The Purge and Home Alone, I'm all for that. The way I sort of envisioned it too, and what I did with it was, all right, if you take some characters, you replace a character that the actor played. So the same actor played both characters. So whatever they played in Home Alone, you pull it out, you pull something that they did in another movie or TV show or something and put it in. So, I had a few of like, well, I'll let you guys go and then I'll tell you mine. But you guys go ahead, and unless you need some time to think about it. But we're going to switch up the character roles that the actor played and put them in this movie. And why?
Yeah. Pesci's the most fun, Devin. I don't know about you, but like he's the most fun for me.
I mean, there could be all kinds of options with Joe Pesci alone, and we'll get to some of my favorite Joe Pesci moments within Home Alone in just a bit. But I will say this: here's my switch it up. So I'm gonna switch up some actors with their previous roles. So give me Daniel Stern from here's a film we need to do on this show. Give me Daniel Stern from Blue Thunder. Give me Macaulay Culkin from The Good Son when he's basically Damien Omen. And give me Pesci from My Cousin Vinny. And let's just see what happens with that. And as long as we've got Pesci for My Cousin Vinny, can we please just toss Marissa Tomei into the line?
Sure. You can always bring tag
Why not? That's the mother, right? Dude, like that's really, I was Macaulay Culkin's character in Good Son. I was going dark,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, O'Hara from her character from Beetlejuice, who was just cracked out.
Nice.
Pesci's character, I think his Tommy DeVito, I think was his name, from Goodfellas.
Oh yeah.
I'm going with, just like you, I'm going with Stern for Blue Thunder.
Nice.
And I think we have one of the darkest, most disturbing purge. Like, I don't know what that says about me, but that's totally the direction I'm going in. They're not the wet bandits in this version.
No,
there's something
no.
completely different.
The shovel.
What did you? What did
Pesci's
you have,
not
Carl?
using.
I want to know.
Well, I was saying from what y'all said, Pesci is not using the shovel or getting whacked in the face with the shovel. He's using it to bury somebody in the back of his.
Yes,
he's got in the back of his Cadillac.
Yes.
All right, I got.
He blows up the house. He blows up the house.
Yes,
he just blows it up.
He is. Well, I got Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone 2 is Kevin. No, totally different character. No, I took Macaulay Culkin from My Girl, so he'll be Thomas J. Sennett.
Nice.
Okay.
Got Catherine O'Hara as Delia Dietz, as you did from Beetlejuice. Okay. I'm going with Joe Pesci from Lethal Weapon 2 as Leo Getz.
That's a good choice.
And Daniel Stern as Phil Berquist from City Slickers. So, and I actually have my scene's a little more since I came up with it. I actually sort of have a scene that they go through. So Delia's purposely she does it on purpose. She leaves her son at home in Chicago in order to go spend time with her like fashionable artsy friends in New York.
Yes.
And so so in Phil from City Slickers, he's talking to his accountant. Okay, so his accountant is Leo Getz. Phil really needs some money because Arlene, his ex-wife, is draining him dry from the alimony and child support, and he's lost his job because Arlene's father fired him from the grocery store. So he needs to impress her, his new love interest, Bonnie. So he needs some cash. So Leo says, "Hey, let's go rob some houses during like Christmas vacation because what Leo wants, Leo gets." Okay, so they're gonna go get it. So Thomas J, he overhears their plan and he sets up some booby traps in his home. And he puts the micro machine cars on to slip on, and he hangs some paint cans to swing and hit their faces. He also sets up a jar of honey to spill on the burglars as they open the kitchen door, kind of like that glue and the feather thing. Well, the beehive that he's getting it from, he drops it on, and he's going to drop the beehive on the burglars, so they'll go to the honey, and the bees will sting the burglars. Unfortunately, Thomas J, he knocks over the hive while he's setting up the trap, and he is stung repeatedly and dies from allergic reaction. So this is a downer of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, his mother Delia she finds his body. She feeling.
You really thought this out,
I did.
man.
Yeah. Can you please forward the manuscript? That would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that. I've got I'll send a link. It's in Docs. Well, how else?
Fanfic at a whole new level.
How else is she going to communicate and apologize to her son other than holding a séance? And so,
yes.
And so the séance.
I'll watch this.
Yes. Okay. So she actually gets Cole from The Sixth Sense to lead the séance. Now he's not really.
Wow.
He's not. He's a child actor. He's similar to Macaulay Culkin. He's not actually in the movie, but we're going to bring him over anyway.
Okay.
So Beetlejuice is summoned, and he ends up dragging Leo and Phil to the land of the dead, where they are actually happier there than they are in their lives on Earth, so they're okay with it. And since two souls crossed over into the land of the dead, two others got to cross back into the land of the living. So Thomas J comes back, and he brings the mother of Veda, Sultanfest, with him. And so that's awkward for Veda's father, Ray Stantz from Ghostbusters, who just got engaged to Ophelia from Trading Places, but, they'll work that out. So anyway, all the families are reunited, and we hear the disembodied voice of Daniel Stern from the Wonder Years, which actually is talking about a kid named Kevin too in his youth.
Wow.
So
Yes.
And he kind of ends the narration with when you're a kid, sometimes you have to protect your home like an adult. You have to leave behind childish things to take on adult responsibilities. You may have to sacrifice your micro machines, and losing my micro machines was worth what I saved. But if I could keep just one micro machine, it would have been my Mini Cooper, and fade to black. And that's mashing it up.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if we should go on with the show, Carl. That was top flight stuff
I
there.
think Carl needs to have a spin-off show of his own after that. I mean,
Yeah. Come on, intern. Slow down. Slow down.
yeah, man.
I'm trying to get
thunder of the host, for crying out loud.
I need to rise above intern to paid gig or something. So I'm just trying to impress the bosses.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's go talk about some of the music. We're going to go into Lock It In and Rip the Knob Off.
Let me hear some of that rock and roll music.
Are you reeling in the years? They say the harder rock and roll is to beat them.
All-time rock and roll, 95.5.
Lock it in and rip the knob off.
All right, Lock It In and Rip the Knob Off is simple. It is, what song do we play on the car radio on the way from the movie theater that best sums up our feelings about it? Movie came out on November 16th, 1990. The top 100 is fun. It has a good mix of stuff. I'm looking at it right now, and my goodness, just in the top 20, you have some gems, but Mariah Carey and MC Hammer were kind of the top of the charts at the time.
Wow.
With Love Takes Time and Pray. But you also had a favorite of mine, Groove Is in the Heart by D-Light.
Wow.
Ice Ice Baby. Poison, Devin, is on the charts. They're in the top 10.
Give it to me.
There's some good stuff, man. I am going with the most low-hanging fruit imaginable. And I'm going with the great, stunning rock band Winger and their song Miles Away. Let me read some lyrics.
Oh.
to you that just makes you understand that I have a good pick on my hands.
All right.
So this is love, or so you tell me, as you're walking out the door.
Oh, ouch.
The months go by, and I know for certain it's not the love I'm looking for. Sometimes just for a moment, I reach out, hope you're still there, but you're miles away. No, you're never turning back. I just can't wait anymore. Miles away, nothing left of what we had. Just when I needed you most, you were miles away. So that's my choice. Nothing like the great lyricist of the band Winger. I win. I think I win, guys.
Winger.
I win.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to...
I didn't even remember his name, but
Wow.
Kip comes through.
Yeah, of course he does.
Kip. Of course, his name is Kip.
Of course.
Duh. Yeah, I mean,
Devin,
Jeremy,
what
that
do you
song,
have?
I'm not even talking about like any relation to this movie, but that song, Miles Away, is second to only another song on this list, which is, of course, it's really the lead song of like what should be the lead song of all of like the Food Network baking shows, which is, of course, Cherry Pie.
Yes.
But anyway, I love the Winger pick. Like, Winger is a guilty pleasure in so many ways. But I will say my lock it in and rip off the knob is got to be again, as a Gen Xer. What? You're telling me that the family's going to leave me home alone? Yes, please. That's my comfort zone. So I am turning up in particular the chorus to this song, which just rings true to the theme of this movie, and that is George Michael's Freedom.
Oh, yes. That's glorious. Glorious.
I thought about that.
I thought about Michael.
Yeah,
about
I did.
him.
That was good. I kind of expected Devin to go down in the blazing glory from Young Guns.
There was
expecting
that. Damn Yankees is on here, which
Oh,
of
yeah.
course there's that
Take Me
connection
Higher.
to Styx, yeah. And so that like those were tempting, but ultimately George Michael Free. I mean, it's an earworm. Now people are gonna be like, damn it, why did he say that? Now that George Michael song's gonna be stuck in my head all day. Yes.
Well,
there is Madonna, Justify My Love.
Wow. As
we
if
could go there.
yeah. Well, as long, I think I can out earworm you, Devin, because
Whoa.
I'm going with Vanilla Ice, Ice Baby, because it's
nice.
like the best trap there is there. Some lyrics there. Something grabs a hold of me tightly. Okay, well, Joe Pesci does grab him and catch him near the end.
Oh.
Flow like a harpoon daily and nightly. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know. Turn off the lights and I'll glow to the extreme. I rock the mic like a vandal. So that part is like the Wet Bandits. It's flowing. Will it ever stop? It's doing it day and night. And vandals destroy property. So Wet Bandits there.
Right.
Later on, anything less than the best is a felony. Yeah, we're committing some felonies in this movie. And then you better hit bullseye. The kid don't play. Well, we've talked about the BB gun to the nuts. So, he is hitting the bullseye there. If there's a problem, I'll solve it. Kevin solves the problem. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. They hang him on a hook at the end when they catch him.
Wow.
Now the party is jumping. Now we've got that scene where he fakes the party, and he's got like Michael Jordan cut out on the train going around and dancing to Brenda Lee's rocking around the Christmas tree. So the party's jumping. Burning them if you ain't quick and nimble. So Joe Pesci was not quick and nimble, got his head burned. Keep on pursuing the next stop. I bust a left and I'm heading to the next block. The block was dead. So the block was dead. Everybody was out of town and they were kind of robbing all the different houses on the block. Gunshots rang out like a bell. I grabbed my 9 and all I heard were shells falling on the concrete real fast. So we got the movie Angels with Dirty Souls, where we're faking the gunshots a couple of times to scare off the pizza guy and scare off one of the robbers. And then at the end, police on the scene, you know what I mean. So for all those reasons, it's Ice Ice Baby. I'm ripping off the knob and letting it play.
There you go.
Wow.
Devin, I get the sense that Carl's really putting in some effort here for the
Jeremy,
show.
I get the sense this might be Carl's last episode.
Oh my gosh! All right, let's go on to There Could Be Only One.
There can be only one.
All right, what is the single best thing? It could be character, moment, scene, line, theme, song, etc. about Home Alone. What's the best thing about it? So for me, it's about as lowest common denominator as you can get. There is something about the tarantula being put on Daniel Stern's face and his response. When I saw that in the theater fell out. I mean, it was the loudest laughter. Even today when I see it, I just can't help myself. I think because I'm so terrified of spiders, I really am. And when I see his reaction, there's this deep identification, but his scream is so amazing. In fact, Daniel Stern, when he was doing the scene, he didn't want to scream, and the guys, the animal handlers of the tarantula, were like, "Hey, the tarantula doesn't have ears, so you're good. You're good." So he belts out that scream. It is, to this day. I mean, I watched it last night, and I just, man, it makes me laugh so hard. And of course, laughing with family watching this movie is just so much fun. We were all laughing at it, and yeah, that's my favorite thing about it. Devin, what's yours? What's the single best thing about Home Alone?
Yeah, I gave a little tip of the cap to it earlier, but for me, it's Joe Pesci's fake cussing. I mean, that is just like Jeremy. I know that you can relate this. Perhaps Carl, you can too, because you work with the public a lot. But I know, like, there are times in my day where I just, like, a student, a fellow administrator, and I'm just fake cussing because I'm not allowed to let it actually fly and keep my job. So I identify with Joe Pesci's character. To me, that's the best part of Home Alone.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. Carl, what about you? What's your there can be only one?
I will say, and this movie is, it is a comedy, and we all talk about how much we laughed at.
Right.
But actually, the church scene, which is, I usually do go for the funny, but the church scene is, it's the kind of, it really makes this movie more than just a slapstick comedy for families. Chris Columbus, when he came on as director, he took a pass at the script, and he added Old Man Marley, and he added the church scene, and then Hughes wrote, then they wrote it together, back and forth, like here's some things, and so they got it to the way it was in the final form. But actually, Columbus was nervous on the day of the shoot because Macaulay Culkin had not done that long of talking at one time. He didn't have that many lines
dialogue,
at any one moment. Dialogue, thank you. That's what I'm scratching for. But he, because most of the stuff in the movie, it's just like these kind of one-liners and reactions and things to stuff. And they say he kind of just came in and he sat down and he did it basically like he was doing a play. He just went straight through the whole thing. And Columbus was like really impressed with how well he did. And I think he did a good job. And that kind of is the heart of the movie, which you kind of need a lot of times to kind of, we talked about it Jeremy talked about with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, how if we hadn't had that last scene, we may not have felt the same way about the movie. So you got to have something that sort of lifts it up. And also in that movie, or in that part of the movie, we go back to John Williams' score too. He did a lot of recording of Christmas classics. He re-recorded stuff himself instead of just using things that already existed, versions of them that already existed. And so they used "Oh Holy Night" there in that scene, and then they did the Carol of the Bells as he's running out, and then how they, it's 8 o'clock when he's leaving the church, and that the thieves are coming at 9, and so they're chiming the bell at the church like 8, and it fits in with Carol of the Bells, and it's just so much more, and then it clicks into the setting the trap motif and stuff in the movie. So John Williams did a great job in that part too. So that all put together is probably the kind of the. I know we all think about the trap sitting set and the thieves falling for it, but that part there just really kind of captures the meaning of the movie and really is done very well.
Yeah, it's emotionally engaging. I mean, just because you get the through line at the very end of the movie where, he sees the, is it Morley? Is that his
Marley.
name?
Marley.
Marley.
Christmas Carol.
He sees Marley reconnecting with, his son, who's he's estranged from, and of course his granddaughter, and that's just, it literally, it affects you. It makes you wonder typically, like, are there any relationships in my life that there needs to be some type of reconciliation? And yes, the slapstick stuff is awesome. It's funny. It's, Macaulay Culkin's great. Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, they're great. But there's something that it gives us another layer that even if it's in passing, I think a lot of audience members are like, they might consider that as well. And that's the power of movies. And I'm with you. I think Macaulay Culkin really does such a good job. And maybe that's what makes him as a child actor so surprising, is he's able to do what an adult actor can do, even a mediocre adult actor. Know your lines, deliver it, give some nuance. And he does that in the scene in the church. And I even thought that last night, Carl, where I was watching it. I'm like, oh, wow, there's like some nuance here just facially as he's like considering, what this guy's saying to him and what, the back and forth is just, it feels natural. Whereas I can't remember, I think it was you, Carl, that, like you said it earlier, it's just like with kid actors, it's like they're just reading, like their memorized lines, they're not acting. And I think that kind of makes this, it's the heart of the movie that makes the booby traps and the invasion, it makes it kind of work too. And you're right, Williams just home run, man. He just, the music's so good, so good. Home Alone. I think for those of you listening, if you haven't watched it this Christmas season, I think it's worth having a listen to. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We got one of the greatest Christmas movies ever coming up next. Our next episode is Die Hard.
Yes.
And we will make the easy case that this is a Christmas film. But we got Die Hard coming up. Our Patreon show, What You Talking About? We're going to be talking about best Christmas movie moments. You can find us on Twitter at Livin the Past, LIVIN the Past. Patreon. Hey, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/living in the past, LIVININ the past. Facebook, we're there, Live in the Past. It's join those dumpster fires if you feel like it. But we're so excited to be doing Die Hard. We're excited to launch into our second year of doing the show, Living in the Past. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll be talking to you soon.